You know that feeling like once you beat a certain boss and you think to yourself, man, that was a really enjoyable boss I just fought. I wish I could fight it again. You probably have some that come to your mind immediately from various different games, but I want to focus on a specific group of bosses, those from Metroidvanias. I've done videos talking about different Metroidvanias, ranked bosses from Terraria and Elden Ring, but now it's time to combine the two and talk what are my 10 favorite Metroidvania bosses from the games that I've played. So before anyone types a comment like where's that one boss from that one game, consider the fact that I probably haven't played the game myself. For this list I'll only use one boss per one game. If the game has a sequel, then I'll pick only one boss that I think is the best. I have another warning. This video is entirely subjective, so let's waste no time and jump straight to the list. At number 10 is probably a surprise for some of you, especially if you've seen my older videos where I was saying that bosses like Julius and Olv are the best. But I've come around and realized that Silva is my favorite. Now at this point in the game, you're stuck with, admittedly, the most clunkiest and funniest dodge ever made, the Dolphin Dive, which makes for some really slow and not exciting encounters. But I have to give some props to the devs here. With Silva, they tried to make a boss that is fast and dashes all over the place feel fair with your dodge. Her attacks require a more precise timings, since some attacks can hit you even if you're behind the boss. The flame projectiles keep you on your toes when you try to run away and heal, and she is constantly dashing back and forth, and it's so fun. The second phase changes the fight completely from a methodic dance to pure adrenaline-inducing encounter. She's a great bestial type enemy. Her attacks are even more dangerous. Fire orbs deal a ton of damage, and the pillars of fire force you to dodge away from her instead of through her. It's amazing, and I can't talk about an Ender Lilies boss without mentioning the amazing soundtrack by Melee. The only downside to this fight is I wish there was more involvement with jumping instead of just dodging. Still engaging, just wish there were some attacks that you need to jump over, which is something that they might be addressing in the sequel. Here's hopes that they'll make even better bosses than in the first game. I just hope we don't get stinkers like the Blighted Lord. Nameless God from Salt and Sanctuary is a big shining gem from a game that I don't really like that much. Even after replaying it, I'm not really a huge fan of this game, especially the boss designs. Most of them are either so easy you forget they ever existed or are complete disasters, and I'm not even going to mention the second game. Yet, every time I'm near the end of the game, I get to fight the Nameless God. I don't know why the other bosses weren't like him, but boy am I glad this guy exists. His combos are mostly basic: dashing, grabs, slashes, which all of them are avoided by rolling. I do like the beams, which force you to dodge them by using the wall jump or rolling at the right time. It's not complex, but what makes up for it is the atmosphere and build up to the fight. You traverse this black and white castle that has 0 enemies and is the only area that has any music. And the boss is the only one that has a unique soundtrack. If this was their attention for the final boss to be the only one with a unique soundtrack, I would say they succeeded in that regard. The forced fall damage at the beginning might seem like an unnecessary addition, but it's thematically great since it looks like he's forcing you to kneel before him. And again, while mechanically he isn't complex, it is still fun to roll back and forth while avoiding his attacks. He's a great final boss. Speaking of great final bosses, here's Shriek. If I was ranking these bosses purely on the spectacle, Shriek would be number 1, no doubt about it. I mean, it's an Ori game, what would you expect? This is the only boss on this list that I fought a single time only, yet I still remember how epic this fight was. Again, the spectacle is amazing, the soundtrack as well, and I like how Shriek has been an active antagonist throughout the game. As for her attacks, I like how the fight forces you to use every ability at your disposal, like sending her projectiles right back at her, the sections where you start running from her to the next arena, and this attack where she flies into you. It's cool, though there is one downside to this boss, and that is attacks that you can't punish. I'm not talking about the phase transitions, I mean the attacks that she can do at any point in the battle and you can't deal any damage to her since she is off screen and is just needlessly dragging the fight. Sorry if I sounded too negative for a bit, I still love the boss for its spectacle and intensity towards the end of the fight. That last section where you are bashing from falling projectiles while Shriek is still trying to kill you is fantastic. It's short yet very intense. It is saddening to me that I have to exclude the other amazing bosses from Blasphemous, but Amenacidas, Laudes, Isidora, Serpes all deserve an honorable mention, as well as Eviterno from the second game. But the reason why I choose Chrysanta over them all is how Game Kitchen with just one DLC changed this fight to perfection. It's a classical Knight type boss, zooming in and out, standard soul swipes, and even can parry back your attacks. And second phase adds teleportation into the mix, as well as shockwaves you have to jump over. Before the DLC, she would have been an A tier boss. Great, but not amazing. But again, that DLC changes everything. Wounds of Eventide decided to give Chrysanta yet another final phase. Her aggression is through the roof, her teleportations are much more frequent, her attacks are even more dangerous if you get hit by them, and parrying her slashes holds much more weight. She only gains one new attack, which isn't much but still a welcome addition, and the voice actor for Chrysanta deserves all the praise she could get.
My voices proclaim that your execution cannot be delayed, and so I fear that my penance is far from over.
The music as well is Carlos Viola's some of the best work they've made, where with the previous entries I was pointing out some flaws here and there. With Chrysanta, I don't think there's a single flaw I could point out, and I also appreciate her for being a blueprint to some other Knight type bosses we would see in the second game, specifically with Eviterno and his insane second phase, and having her motif as well. It's kind of funny how we go from a nun wielding a hammer, to a giant owl, to a classic Knight type boss, to an eldritch god who says speedrunners are nerds.
Speedrunners, you all disgust me, fucking nerds.
In a sense, Thalamus is kind of similar to Shriek. Both are final bosses of their games, both are active antagonists throughout the game. The big difference for me is how those fights play out and their characterizations. Thalamus is an evil eldritch god who wants nothing but to enjoy in torturing his subjects. And his design. Holy crap, is it both cool and terrifying. Mechanically, Thalamus is like no other boss on the list. He often uses basic slashes and grabs, but most of the time he will throw in other mechanics like the red vortexes, summoning minions, setting the ground on fire while he is still attacking you. Each individual attack on its own is basic. It is when they are all combined that makes them engaging. He even has attacks that I've honestly never seen any other boss do in any other game. Now this fight has two separate health bars, but the second phase is more of a victory lap rather than a new challenging phase, which I don't mind since the moment thematically is great. And again, the voice acting here is really damn good.
Clever, endless, but what will that afford you?
This is also a perfect time to recommend Death's Gambit Afterlife. It's a really good game, and as for the other bosses, they are also great. Shout out to the other two final bosses especially. Also canonically Thalamus uses Twitter, which if you play the game, it's pretty much in character for him.
Hello, Twitter.
This pick will definitely be the most unexpected for many people. Valo from Afterimage. Afterimage is a pretty good game, filled with good level design and satisfying combat, though the bosses tend to be mostly around C and B tier of quality, with a couple of A tier fights. Yet Valo is the only one I would consider to be an amazing tier fight and worthy enough to be on this list. So why is that? Well, it's because this boss is a combo maniac. Her attacks are triple slash combo, a delayed charged, uppercut slash, holy pillars, and can even parry your attacks. What adds even more complexity is how she can sometimes extend her combos. But how do you make a 2D boss which can extend combos feel fair to the player? This is how. Whenever a golden aura appears around Valo, you'll know that she will at any moment extend her combos. This is perfect because the player will be warned of a potential follow-up to an attack that Valo does, and those attacks can be anything. She can follow it up with a double pillar explosion, additional slash, sending a golden wave, a delayed triple slash, and more. The second phase adds 0 new attacks, but now she is constantly extending her combos. To balance this out, her health is slowly decreasing, but you can still damage her to make the phase last shorter. So there are two options when dealing with the second phase. Either run around and wait for her health to completely drain, which is a little boring. Or be like me and try still getting hits on the boss while still avoiding her attacks, which is exhilarating. It is insane to me how a game that has mostly B tier fights can have a fight like Valo. And thanks to a recent update I can refight this boss at any time I want to, without the need to start a new file. Number 4 and 3 were by far the hardest for me to choose. You'll see soon who I'm talking about. I've gone back and forth whether I should put Darius as 4th or 3rd best boss. Even now I'm still not sure about the placement, but it doesn't matter since I knew he would be on this list. Before that I wanted to mention both Varam and Orad as honorable mentions here. Both are fantastic. Not quite as good as King Darius. This boss takes a great advantage of the last ability upgrade you get, which is basically a grappling hook. With this ability, Darius can have gigantic aerial denial moves, which you can only avoid by using a grappling hook. In first phase he uses massive ice spikes to cover the whole ground, but in phase 2 he changes it up by adding fire, and Darius starts zooming at you mid-air. His basic swings are now much faster and deadlier. And if you dodge his first swing, he always follows it up with a fire circle that you must jump over. His other attacks include a purple fire which lasts longer, and he finishes it up with a reckless attack. Reckless attacks are basically the attack that if you parry you deal a ton of damage to the boss, but if you miss you are severely punished for it. In case of Darius, it's by far the best one. Other attacks he has is a purple circle and then following it up with flames in 4 directions. The final phase brings back ice into the mix, so some attacks are followed up with the ice spikes. While he doesn't have insane combo variations like Valo does, he doesn't need them since each attack requires a specific way of dodging them. Half the time I feel like I'm constantly mid-air while trying to avoid his attacks, which in a game that has the most responsive and fluid controls I've seen is perfect. There is a lot of story significance and build up to this fight, which also adds to the experience. King Darius takes the throne here. Choosing between Pure Vessel and Darius was the hardest decision to make. So hard that I had to ask my friend which boss is better. Both of them are equally great to me. I decided to go with Pure Vessel simply for its thrill of a battle. Sisters of Battle and Grim deserve a mention in here as well. Sisters of Battle might be the best gang fight I've seen, while Nightmare King Grim is one of the most memorable challenges I've beaten. Pure Vessel only has 4 attacks at the beginning, and then by the end he has a whopping 6. Yet despite this small number, he still manages to be incredibly difficult due to his speed and uptime between each attack. After he is done with his attack, he is already starting a new one. You can stagger him from time to time, but he will quickly get up and start attacking you like nothing happened. I remember fighting this boss for the first time and it took me a while to get used to his rhythm. But when I did, god damn is it fun as hell. I like how much the fight emphasizes the smart use of your Shade Cloak. You might dodge his first attack, but the following one you have to find a way to avoid it. He can also punish reckless aggression by parrying your attacks if you're just spamming the attack button, and his constant teleportations always keep you on your toes for his next surprise attack. These days it's not that hard. I've done this boss no hit multiple times, but that first time fighting him and beating him is something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. You can say Pure Vessel is pure fun. Sad that I have to exclude the other amazing bosses from Grime, but here are honorable mentions: Shidra, Shapely Fidus, Final Performance, and Surrogate Vulture, some of the best bosses I fought. Not quite as amazing as Dreamborn Terror though. Grime's combat is slow yet deliberate. Your stamina regens at a snail pace. Just by dodging you consume a big chunk of stamina. Yet there is parrying which will help you with that problem. Most of the bosses are on a slower side of aggression. Even with bosses like Final Performance and Shapely, they are moderately aggressive. But Dreamborn Terror is an all-out aggression and speed. His attacks are very quick and his combos are much longer than the other bosses. But it works since this is an optional New Game Plus boss, and you have all of your ability upgrades at your disposal, and your stamina should be big enough for this encounter. He doesn't have any combo variations, but he does have is sudden teleportations, which you know is happening when you hear that sudden zap sound. Now this fight has 6 goddamn phases. The first one is pretty difficult with his long combos and attacks that you must avoid. Now the second phase. I used to hate this part of the fight because the boss would constantly just run away from me while his twin blade keeps spinning everywhere. But this was before I realized you are meant to corner him, because from time to time he will teleport up in the air, which you can punish him for some insane damage. Phase 3 is a big climb with awesome spectacle, which eventually leads you to phase 4 and 5. aka the best part of the fight. The terror has the same attacks, but the complexity skyrockets with a giant JoJo stand in the background sending purple beams, and it combos super well with Terror's toolkit, and it leads to some of the most intense moments where you are parrying the terror while also keeping an eye for the purple beams. Phase 5 is like Phase 2, but again the purple beams make it even harder. And the final phase is a final climb where you deliver a final blow to the boss. Now, are there any negatives to this fight? Looking at it mechanically, no. But here's the thing, this boss is brutal. On this whole list, it's by far the hardest one, and it was added in a late update, so not many people even know this boss exists. Which is a shame, because I really do think this is an incredible boss to fight and learn. It's a pinnacle of a 2D boss. But then 9 Souls came out. Before I start praising Agong's fight, first some runner-ups. Lady Ethereal is a great fight, fantastic gang fight that gets better and better with each phase. Ji Kwang, a literal maniac who conjures different weapons and is your nemesis. And finally, I want to apologize to the Fangs. They should be in S tier. Those snakes combos are fantastic. And finally we have Agong, my choice for the best Metroidvania boss I've fought. And yes, I will be glazing her again. Just like with Dreamborn Terror, this is a very difficult fight that will test everything you've learned up to that point. But unlike in Grime, the combat is much faster and it allows Agong to have quick attacks with very minimal downtime between each combo. Just like Valo, she has combo variations upon combo variations, yet it doesn't feel unfair because of your tools at your disposal. Deflecting. You have standard parries, mid-air parries, unbound counters for her red attacks. You also have a dodge, but it should be used sparingly. The arena you fight her in is infinite, so you don't have to worry about borders messing you up. And can I just bring up how satisfying it is to parry her attacks? The sound design is great here. And also when you use an unbound counter as well. When comparing all of the phases, the first one is the easiest to master. However, the second phase goes off the charts with the aggression. Aegon gains several new attacks and her previous combos get new extensions. The grab attack can be followed by a 2-slash attack, followed by a red attack, or 1-slash followed by a red attack and then followed by yet another big explosion. But both of these attacks can be punished if you learn to use unbound counter. On my first playthrough I wasn't using this tool that much, but on repeat playthroughs I realized how satisfying and rewarding it is to use and master. Especially when she does her red waves attacks, so satisfying to deflect. Both of these phases are S tier, followed by the best phase I've seen in a boss fight. Doing a true ending for the game will give Aegon third and final phase, where she goes all out with her attacks. She only gains one attack, yet that one attack makes this fight the best thing ever made. Just from this one attack she gains even more complexity than before. Her zapping around like a lightning and closing in with either a grab, which can be followed by either two previously mentioned variations, or closing in with rapid slashes, is one of the best sequences of attacks I've seen in a boss fight. This attack can be done twice in a row, once, or again twice, but in between followed by a red attack which you have to jump over, and she can start this at any moment she wants to. She always starts it when she enters the final phase, but after that it can happen literally at any moment she wants to do it. Either after the wave slashes or after the basic combos. It always keeps you guessing when she will start zooming in and out like a lightning. For a final boss she does everything perfectly, and the lessons you've learned are tested one final time. Deflecting and reaction timings, unbound counters, mid-air parries, careful dodges, and so on. You know what else is perfect? The music. Taking a look at this list, she has everything previous bosses have. One-on-one duels? Check. Difficulty? Check. All abilities pushed to their limit? Check. Combo variations to keep you guessing? Check. Build up? Check. The thrill of a battle? Check. Spectacle? Check. And finally the music? Check. All of this is to say, Aegon is the best Metroidvania boss I've fought. Honestly, this video was an excuse to talk about the bosses I love in a greater detail, and I'm glad I've made it, and I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon with the next video.